Welcome, deep divers. Ever stop and think about what really makes certain people, certain ideas just stick? You look back through history, right? Ancient forums, packed marketplaces, even modern boardrooms.
Yeah, there's definitely a common thread, isn't there?
Exactly. It's this incredible power to, well, shape a vision people can see, to genuinely persuade them, and maybe most importantly, to spark action.
It's not just about having a good idea, it's about making that idea land, making it resonate.
Totally. From, someone just trying to be their best self to leaders literally changing the course of nations, it often boils down to the clarity of their purpose and just the sheer force of their words. That's what seems to move mountains.
That's a really insightful way to put it. And it goes beyond just like charisma. It's about understanding people, understanding influence, and how you frame things. How an idea, if you deliver it effectively, can genuinely shift how someone sees the world or even how society works.
Which brings us right to our mission today. We are taking a deep dive into this amazing collection of sources. I mean, it's quite a mix. You've got ancient philosophers side by side with modern self-help types, civil rights icons next to business leaders.
It's a fascinating stack for sure.
And our goal, we want to pull out the absolute best bits, the most powerful insights about how purpose, persuasion, and personal potential all connect, how they feed each other, really, fueling individual success, but also igniting these huge movements for change.
So think of this as like your shortcut to getting really well informed on this. We're digging into the mechanics behind some seriously compelling stories and some very practical advice.
Yeah, get ready. We're going to uncover some surprising facts, some wisdom that feels timeless, and hopefully just enough humor to keep you hooked as we unpack what makes a message actually work, what really empowers people, and how profound change, actually happens.
It's definitely a journey that pushes you to look past the surface. We're not just talking techniques, but also the moral side of influence,
Yeah.
right? And how things like courage, conviction, and just knowing yourself can completely change the game. You'll definitely see things a bit differently after this.
Okay, let's dive in. Section 1, the foundations.
Right.
Before we can even touch on the big world-changing ideas, we've got to understand the tools, right? Rhetoric and persuasion. And our sources make it super clear this isn't just about sounding smart or using big words.
Not at all. It's way more fundamental. It's an art, really, with specific techniques, and has a huge impact on how we all think and act.
So where do we start? The ancients.
Yeah, let's start with Aristotle. In his Rhetoric, he was really trying to pin down what persuasion actually is. He centered it on something called enthymemes.
Enthymemes. Okay, sounds a bit academic.
Yeah, it does, but the idea is pretty straightforward. Think of them as like logical shortcuts, arguments that tap into what your audience already believes or feels. So you don't need this long, drawn-out formal proof for every single point.
Ah, okay, so it's about meeting people where they are intellectually.
Exactly. It's efficient. He pointed out that a lot of the early arts of speeches kind of miss this core thing, focusing too much on like side issues.
So keep the focus tight. Don't waste energy arguing points the audience already accepts.
Precisely. Keep their attention where you actually need to persuade them. And he made this really interesting distinction. In a courtroom, okay, the law is the starting point, precision is key.
Makes sense.
But outside the courtroom, in public life, he argued that showing yourself to be honest, building that trust, that credibility, that often matters more than having a perfectly airtight logical argument.
So being believable trumps being technically perfect, in a way.
Often, yes. It's about connection and trust. And when it came to using examples, he talked about two types. Epagogo, that's like strict, almost scientific induction, laying out all the evidence.
Okay.
And then paradigma, which is more about using probable examples like telling a compelling story or citing a relevant case. It's less about definitive proof and more about illustrating your point in a relatable way.
So stories versus stats almost both have their place.
Right. Now, if Aristotle gave us the sort of logical framework
Cicero brought the style.
and the conviction, Cicero saw oratory as a serious art, not just talent, but something requiring immense work, real labor. He actually believed a truly great orator could hold the helm of statesmanship.
Wow, that's a high bar.
It is, and he felt true eloquence was rare. He said something like, there are many good but no really eloquent speakers. He wasn't dissing the good ones, but saying real eloquence, the kind that truly moves people, goes beyond just saying what is necessary.
What did it need then?
It needed, in his words, intonation, delivery, and a certain charm. It's the whole package. The sound, the presence, the connection.
And he practiced hard, right? Didn't he translate Greek speeches?
He did. As practice, he'd explain Greek orations in Latin. not just translating word for word, but capturing the essence, the structure, the power. It was about mastering the language, really internalizing how great arguments were built. It shows you the dedication involved.
That dedication carries through, doesn't it? What about Quintilian?
Quintilian saw rhetoric as maybe the noblest and most sublime of tasks, essential for a full education. And he gets very practical, especially about legal arguments. He made this distinction between indefinite questions, general philosophical ones like, is justice good?
Right.
And definite questions which are about specific cases like, was this specific action just? But his key insight was that the general question is always lurking inside the specific one. You can't argue a specific case well without grappling with the underlying principle.
That's a really useful way to think about structuring an argument. Find the universal and the particular.
Exactly. And he dug into legal nuances too, like, should you follow the exact letter of the law or its underlying intention? What do you do when laws conflict or seem ambiguous? He even tackled whether a law is truly right or just expedient, useful for the moment.
So, questioning the law itself, not just applying it.
Yes. And he spent a lot of time on witnesses, how advocates build up or tear down credibility. He even detailed methods for giving false evidence not to endorse it, but so lawyers could recognize and counter it. It's about understanding the human factor.
It sounds very strategic.
Very. He talked about places of arguments, like mental locations where different types of arguments live. Finding the right one requires skill, discrimination. Like a hunter, knowing where to find specific game.
I like that analogy. It's not just having arguments, but knowing where to find the right one for the situation.
Yeah, and he discussed reasoning from past to future, or using facts that support each other, or even using opposite facts to make a point. But interestingly, he also warned against getting too hung up on rigid definitions. Sometimes, he suggested, it's better to just lay out the facts clearly and let the audience connect the dots, rather than risking a definition that your opponent could pick apart. Cicero apparently did this in one of his cases.
Let the facts speak for themselves sometimes. Smart.
So you had these masters of how to persuade, but then comes Plato, who throws a wrench in the works.
Plato, always asking the uncomfortable question.
Exactly. He pushes beyond just convincing people. He asks, is it true? Is it good? In the Gorgias dialogue, Socrates makes this sharp distinction between conviction based on knowledge, which has to be true, and conviction based just on belief, which could be true or false.
And Gorgias, the rhetoric expert, puts his art on the side of belief without knowledge. That seems like a huge admission.
It was a critical concession. It meant oratory could persuade you of something, but couldn't guarantee its truth. And there's this undercurrent in Plato, maybe a bit elitist, that you can't really teach deep truths to a large crowd. Serious teaching, for him, was more intimate.
So mass persuasion is inherently superficial, in his view.
That seems to be the implication. Socrates uses irony to back Gorgias into a corner. If rhetoric is just about belief, not knowledge, then it's about power-swaying opinion. But wait, Gorgias also says it's concerned with right and wrong.
Which surely requires knowledge, not just belief.
Precisely. How can you argue about justice if you don't know what justice is? It puts Gorgias in an illogical position.
So for Plato, true rhetoric has to be grounded in truth, in philosophy.
Yes, that comes out even more in the Phaedrus. The dialogue explores what makes rhetoric a genuine expertise, not just, pandering. The argument emerges that a truly successful orator must understand truth, especially on big issues like morality.
This connects to his political ideas too, right? His suspicion of pure democracy.
It does. Plato wasn't a fan of pluralism, of just letting all opinions battle it out. He believed a sound community was a unified community, guided by knowledge of the good. Good rhetoric should serve that truth, not just win arguments.
And fascinatingly, he even critiqued writing itself.
Which is ironic, given how much he wrote. But he felt written texts just give answers. They don't engage the reader like a live dialogue. His own dialogues were meant to provoke questions, to make you think, not just absorb information passively.
Okay, so wrapping up this section on the foundations, what's the big takeaway for us listening today?
I think it's that persuasion, real persuasion, isn't just about clever tricks. It's about understanding people, their beliefs, their values. It's about building trust. It's about structuring your ideas in a way that connects.
So knowing this ancient wisdom helps you see through the noise, become a sharper listener.
Definitely. And a more impactful communicator yourself. You start to see the how and why behind messages, not just the what. It's a really powerful lens.
Makes sense. Okay, let's shift gears. We've talked about persuading others. What about ourselves? Unlocking our own potential. That seems to be where Section 2 takes us.
Yeah, this is where it gets really personal, I think. Moving from the public stage to the individual. Our sources here really hammer home this idea that progress, personal, societal, often starts with seeing and growing what you already have, often in places you totally overlook.
And the classic example of this has to be Russell H. Conwell's Acres of Diamonds.
Oh, absolutely. He gave that lecture thousands of times. His core message was simple, but profound. Every man has the opportunity to make more of himself than he does in his own environment, with his own skill, with his own energy, and with his own friends.
So stop looking far away. The treasure is right here.
Pretty much.
Right.
He diagnosed this kind of proximity blindness we have. We think opportunity has to be somewhere else, exotic, different. He's saying, look around, look inside. Your skills, your community, your own backyard. That's where the diamonds often are.
And he used that incredible story about Ali Hafed.
Yeah, the Persian farmer who hears about diamonds, sells his perfectly good farm, wanders the world searching, and dies broke.
Oh, while the guy who bought his farm finds
Acres of diamonds, right there on the old farm, discovered literally while watering his camel by a stream. Conwell points out that some of the world's most famous diamonds came from that very spot. It's such a powerful metaphor.
And he had other examples too, didn't he? Like the Pennsylvania farmer.
Yep, sold his farm to look for oil elsewhere, and the new owner strikes oil right there. Or the mineralogy professor in Massachusetts who sold his family homestead, never realizing he'd been sitting on, basically, a huge chunk of silver ore his whole life. It was part of the stone wall by his gate.
It's almost comical, but also tragic. We just don't see what's right in front of us.
Exactly. It's a recurring theme. The value is often hidden in plain sight.
Now, Conwell also got into the morality of wealth, which can sound a bit jarring today.
It can. He very directly stated that it was a Christian and godly duty for people in Philadelphia, where he often spoke, to get rich honestly. He made a clear line, though, between money itself, which he saw as a tool for good, and the love of money, which he called idolatry, the root of evil.
So getting rich through service and hard work was good. Hoarding it or loving it more than God was bad.
That was his argument. And his views on poverty were stark. He said the number of poor people deserving sympathy was very small. He argued pretty bluntly that poverty usually stemmed from shortcomings, either one's own or someone else's. It reflected a very strong belief in individual responsibility.
Almost like your wealth is a measure of the good you've done for the community.
He literally said you could measure the good you have been to this city by what this city has paid you. It's a very direct, perhaps controversial link between contribution and compensation.
But he also highlighted accessible paths to that wealth, right? Like the toy maker story.
Oh yeah, the Hingham toy maker. Started with basically nothing, just a penknife. He couldn't afford proper wood, so he used firewood scraps. His big insight, he just watched his own kids and made toys they liked. Simple, unpainted things.
And they became huge sellers.
Huge. Made him one of the richest men in Massachusetts. Conwell's point was, understand human needs, start with what's familiar, what's close to home. The answer was right there in his own house.
And Conwell himself kind of lived this, didn't he? Came from poverty, worked incredibly hard.
Absolutely. His biography speaks to that relentless work ethic, 16 hours every day, reportedly. He was a student, lawyer, preacher, founder of Temple University. He aimed for simplicity in his sermons, wanting to sound like just a friend talking. That relatability was key to his impact.
This idea of inner potential, focused thought.
Yeah.
It connects really well to Earl Nightingale, doesn't it? The strangest secret.
It really does. Nightingale's core concept is arresting. We literally become what we think about. Our thoughts shape our reality.
And he proposed that 30-day experiment.
Right. Deliberately control your thoughts for 30 days. Focus on a goal. Understand that as you sow, so shall you reap, applies mentally too. Cut off negative thinking. Realize limitations are mostly self-imposed. Be open-minded. Think positively. It's like a mental boot camp.
He even brought in physics, Newton's law.
Yeah, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. His point was, success requires effort. There's a price. Doctors study for years. Salespeople need to connect with people. The results you get are directly related to the effort you put in, including the mental effort.
And he called the human brain the gold mine between your ears.
Fantastic phrase, isn't it? He saw it as this priceless resource, an inexhaustible storehouse of ideas. His message was incredibly optimistic. Nothing has yet been done perfectly. Everything in the world remains to be done or done over.
So infinite opportunities for improvement and innovation.
Driven by creative thinking. He was big on brainstorming.
Right.
Try anything, try everything, and write it all down. No judgment initially, just generate possibilities.
And then evaluate them.
Then evaluate, based on effectiveness and facility. How well will it work, and how easy is it to actually do? He used the example of a manufacturer. Maybe a total product overhaul is too hard and risky, but a targeted TV ad campaign is easier and potentially very effective. Choose the path with the best return for the effort.
Smart. And what about the creative person's mindset, according to Nightingale?
They're constantly learning, adding to their stock of information. They have clear goals so they don't just drift. They carve out time specifically for imaginative thinking about themselves, their work, others. And crucially, they're open. They seek ideas, respect others' minds, avoid prejudice. Curiosity is key.
That focus on goals really echoes Les Brown, too.
Absolutely. Les Brown's famous line, "The tragedy of life does not lie in the not reaching our goals. The tragedy lies in not having any goals to reach. It's about having something to strive for."
And he talks about responsibility, doesn't he? Our gifts come with a duty to use them.
Yes. You have these talents, this potential. You have a responsibility to develop and use them. And that means stretching, getting outside your comfort zone. That's where growth happens, where you tap into powers you didn't even know you had.
How do you make those goals real for Brown?
Write them down. Study them. Read them aloud 3 times a day. The idea is to embed them in your subconscious, to make yourself hyper-aware of opportunities related to those goals. It's about focus and attraction.
And then Ziglar brings in the grit factor.
Oh, yes. Ziglar's all about bulldog tenacity and persistence. You got to keep at it. He used that great analogy of the old water pump.
Right. It takes a lot of effort to get the water flowing.
But once it starts, you just need steady, consistent pumping to keep it going. It's about getting momentum and then maintaining it through persistence.
He also shared that story about the salesman breaking his record.
Yeah, simply because someone convinced him he could. It highlights the raw power of belief. And Ziglar had that profound insight. We treat people the way we see them, and they respond to that treatment, whether it's good or bad, positive or negative.
Yeah.
Our perception shapes reality, not just for us, but for others too.
Wow. Okay, so bringing this section together for the listener, what's the core message?
It's that you, right now, likely have incredible untapped potential. Maybe it's in your skills, your environment, your ideas, those acres of diamonds. The challenge these thinkers pose is look inward. Define what you want, believe in your ability to achieve it, and then put in the focused, consistent effort.
That combination self-belief, clear goals, and persistent action, that's the secret key.
That seems to be the common thread. It's about unlocking that personal gold mine that Nightingale talked about. Start where you are, use what you have, and don't underestimate your own power.
Powerful stuff. Okay, so we've gone from public persuasion to personal potential. Now, Section 3 seems to merge these, how individuals use their voice, their courage, to drive change in the world.
Exactly. This is where we see purpose and persuasion meeting moral courage. How individuals step up, challenge injustice, and try to forge a better society. And yet, it often involves incredibly difficult choices.
Let's start with Sojourner Truth. What a voice.
An absolutely powerful voice. For justice, for Black people, for women, she firmly believed knowledge is power. She wasn't afraid to call out what she saw as the reasons for inaction or opposition, whether it was blindness of mind, lack of education, or just plain fear, especially fear of offending the whites.
She was direct, talking about sending tons of paper down to Washington for them spouters to chaw on for women's suffrage.
Totally. And she used religious arguments very effectively, too, pointing out Jesus never spoke against women but did speak harshly against men. Her work wasn't just talk either. She actively worked for the poor and outcast, especially those left destitute after the Civil War trying to get government aid.
She also made a really crucial point about judging fairly, didn't she?
Yes, that the real capacities of the Negro race have never been thoroughly tested. How could you judge people, she argued, when they haven't had the same opportunities, the same civilizing influences as free men? It was a powerful call for equal footing before making judgments.
That need to speak truth to power, even when it's dangerous, it echoes through history, like Demosthenes warning the Athenians about Philip of Macedon.
A classic example. His Philippics were urgent alarms. He warned them point blank. Close connections with tyrants are not safe for republics. He was pleading with them to wake up and take control of their own destiny.
Instead of being passive observers.
Right. He mocked them sarcastically, saying they knew Philip's tactics only by hearsay. He pushed them to put themselves at the head of their affairs. And he knew it wasn't popular. He stressed that orders had a duty to write and advise truthfully, even if it meant losing favor. The public good came first.
That willingness to risk popularity for principle, It's the core of moral courage, and you see it again, even if just in the title with Patrick Henry.
Give me liberty or give me death. Even without the full speech in our sources, that phrase alone is electrifying. It captures that moment of absolute commitment to a cause, rallying people in a way few phrases ever have.
And fast forward to Harvey Milk, his call for visibility.
Such a powerful, necessary message for the LGBTQ+ community at that time. He argued communities shouldn't be judged by negative stereotypes or criminals and myths, but by their visible leaders, those who were openly gay.
Because invisibility meant
Remaining a shadowy myth, rootless, defined only by prejudice. Visibility for Milk was an act of claiming humanity, of demanding recognition and respect. It was political, but also deeply personal.
Okay, so these are voices challenging the status quo. But then there's the challenge of leadership within the system trying to navigate incredibly difficult circumstances. This brings us to Booker T. Washington and the Atlanta Compromise.
Right. This is a really pivotal and, frankly, complex moment in American history. In 1895, Washington delivers this speech in Atlanta, outlining a path forward for Black Americans in the post-Reconstruction South.
And the core of his proposal was?
Essentially, he urged Black Americans to focus on achieving economic self-sufficiency through vocational education, skilled labor, and entrepreneurship. His famous line was, "Cast down your bucket where you are," meaning build economic strength within your current communities. He prioritized economic progress and proving their worth through hard work and tangible contributions.
And in return, he seemed to de-emphasize immediate demands for political power or social integration.
That's the controversial part. He suggested cooperation with white Southerners, famously saying, "In all things that are purely social, we can be as separate as the fingers, yet one is the hand in all things essential to mutual progress." He was essentially accepting segregation, at least for the time being, in exchange for support for Black economic development and education.
Which was seen by some as pragmatic, a necessary step.
Exactly. Some hailed him as a realist, making the best possible deal in an incredibly hostile environment, a way to build a foundation, gain respect through economic power, which might then lead to other rights.
But others saw it very differently.
Very differently. Critics, like W.E.B. Du Bois most famously, saw it as a dangerous compromise, arguing that you couldn't separate economic progress from civil and political rights. They felt Washington was essentially accommodating white supremacy and asking Black people to give up their rightful claims to full equality and dignity.
It really starkly illustrates the incredibly tough choices leaders face, doesn't it? Balancing immediate needs against long-term ideals, especially when facing overwhelming opposition.
It absolutely does. There rarely are easy answers in those situations. And you see similar complexities, though, in a different context with Theodore Roosevelt.
TR, the pragmatic progressive.
Right. He believed the Constitution's framers just couldn't have imagined modern industrial corporations. So the government, especially the executive branch, needed to adapt, to step in more.
Acting as a referee between capital and labor.
That was his view. He wasn't anti-business, he praised industry, but he saw a need for regulation, for balance. His handling of the 1902 coal strike is a prime example.
He intervened even without clear constitutional authority.
He did. He felt a national crisis was looming, potentially riots in freezing cities. So he mediated, pressured the owners, and averted disaster. Conservatives were furious, called him a radical, accused him of overreach. Wall Street saw him as a traitor to his class.
But his reasoning was strategic.
He wrote to his sister that he was trying to prevent public calamity and, interestingly, to save the big propertied men from their own stubbornness. His thinking was that moderate reforms, like the ones he pushed for, would actually prevent a more radical revolution by addressing legitimate grievances.
Treating people based on worth, not wealth. Advocating for a living wage. Applying Lincoln's principles to new problems.
All part of his platform. But he wasn't just about domestic issues. He was also critical of what he saw as naive idealism in foreign policy, dismissing peace congresses as empty shams if they weren't backed by strength, and a willingness to do the hard, practical work for righteousness. He had little patience for neutrality in big moral conflicts.
Shifting to the legal battles for equality, Ruth Bader Ginsburg's story is remarkable. Her focus shifted in 1970.
Yes, that was her watershed year, moving her scholarship squarely into gender equality. She saw the potential in the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause, even though it had been interpreted narrowly in the past, allowing segregation. For example, she recognized its growth potential, as demonstrated by Brown v. Board of Education, overturning segregation.
So using existing legal tools in new ways.
Exactly. And she documented the scale of the problem, finding hundreds, 876 sections in the United States Code with explicitly sex-based language. This fueled her argument for the Equal Rights Amendment to drive comprehensive change.
And President Clinton highlighted her fairness and consensus-building skills when nominating her.
He did. He saw her not just as an advocate, but as someone wise in judgment, balanced and fair. Someone who could build bridges on the court despite her clear progressive outlook and historic work for women.
Her views on affirmative action were also quite distinct, weren't they?
Yes. She saw affirmative action policies as necessary, endeavors to make the equality ideal more than aspirational. She famously pushed back against the idea that the way to end racial discrimination is simply to stop considering race. She argued there's a fundamental difference between using race-conscious criteria to exclude and segregate versus using them to include and integrate to overcome historical disadvantage.
Aiming for a truly diverse and inclusive society where differences are understood, even celebrated.
That was her vision, pulling together for the common good while embracing diversity.
These struggles for justice and equality inevitably bring us to the darkest chapters, like the Holocaust. Elie Wiesel's reflections are incredibly sobering.
Deeply sobering. He grappled with the Holocaust not just as a historical event, but as a unique category of crime. A people were sentenced to die simply for being who they were anywhere in the world. His ongoing struggle was trying to comprehend how it happened, how people became perfect victims and perfect killers, and especially the profound indifference that surrounded it all.
And the fight against forgetting
Became his life's mission. He saw the assault on Jewish memory as a continuation of the crime. For him, remembering wasn't about dwelling on the past. It was an act of defiance, the best vengeance against annihilation. Bearing witness, preserving memory, was paramount.
This theme of maintaining hope and moral purpose in difficult times resonates with Theodore M. Shaw, too.
Yes, Shaw warned about the commercial man, overshadowing the moral man, leading to a kind of suicide of the soul. He gets you this powerful call to younger generations. Ignore your elders if they're wrong. Reject the pressure to conform, the Greek chorus telling you to lower your sights.
He holds on to hope, seeing history's arc bending towards justice, even if slowly.
Definitely. He points to abolishing slavery, achieving universal suffrage. These huge, seemingly impossible things did happen. For Shaw, hope isn't passive optimism. It's a choice, an active stance against despair, because he believed humanity's greatest sins are the stepchildren of despair.
And he quotes Dick Musnecki, "If you want your dreams to come true, don't sleep."
A brilliant call to action. Keep working, keep striving.
So reflecting on this section, the message seems clear. Change is hard, often involves gut-wrenching choices like Washington faced, but it's driven by people with conviction and the courage to act, to speak out, to lead.
Absolutely. Whether it's fighting tyranny like Demosthenes, demanding rights like Sojourner Truth, navigating complex reforms like Roosevelt, pursuing legal equality like Ginsburg, or bearing witness like Wiesel, it shows you the power and the necessity of moral courage. It really forces you to think about leadership, justice, and the imperative to act on your beliefs.
Which leads us nicely into our final section, exploring the deeper why, the pursuit of wisdom, values, meaning.
Right. Beyond the practicalities of persuasion or achievement or even social change, these sources push us towards those fundamental questions. What makes life meaningful? How do we live well, especially when facing difficulty?
Let's start with the Stoics. Seneca had some radical ideas about death.
He really did. Think on death, he advised. Why? Because thinking on death is thinking on freedom. Learning to die is unlearning slavery. His point was, if you lose the fear of death, what external power can truly control you? Nothing. You hold the ultimate key.
That's a complete flip of how we usually see death. It's liberating, not terrifying.
In his view, yes. The goal is possessing supreme power over oneself. That means not fearing people or gods, not craving harmful or excessive things. It's about inner mastery. Because at the end of the day, there is no man who does not die his own death. You control your inner world.
And this inner focus extended to virtue and gratitude, too.
Definitely. Gratitude wasn't just a social nicety for Seneca. It was a good thing for ourselves, something that benefits the giver. And virtue, its reward is simply doing it. The wages of a good deed is to have done it. You don't act virtuously for praise or reward, but because it aligns with your conscience, your honor, even if you face disgrace for it.
It's about inner integrity above all else.
Yes. And he even suggested studying vice helps you practice virtue, like a doctor studying illness to know health. Understand the negative to strengthen the positive.
This idea of finding meaning, especially through suffering, brings us to Viktor Frankl.
And his experience in Auschwitz, which profoundly shaped his logotherapy. His whole approach was about healing the soul by guiding it to find meaning, even in the most horrific circumstances.
The indifference he described is just chilling. Prisoners reduced to items on a list.
Utterly dehumanizing.
Okay.
Yet, Frankl insisted that even there, meaning could be found, often in how one chose to face the suffering. He saw existential frustration, the struggle for meaning not as an illness to be medicated away, but as a fundamental human challenge. The therapist's role was to help navigate it, to grow through it.
Because we have to answer life's questions ourselves.
That was his core belief. Life asks questions of us, and we can only respond to them by being responsible for our existence. It's about taking ownership of our responses, finding our unique purpose in our specific situation.
That sense of owning our story feels very connected to Brené Brown's work on vulnerability and shame.
It really does. Brown's research showed shame is universal, deeply human. But the triggers often differ by gender. Women, facing the pressure to be perfect in every way. Men, often shamed for perceived weakness or lack of control.
And the root fear is often about connection.
Yes, the fear of not being worthy of real connection. That drives so much shame. Her concept of wholehearted people is key. Those who are resilient to shame because they fundamentally believe in their own worthiness.
And she offers practices to cultivate that.
Three main ones. Saying, I am enough to counter shame. Saying, I've had enough to set boundaries against comparison. And recognizing that simply showing up, taking risks, and letting myself be seen is enough. Embracing engagement over hiding.
Wordiness comes from living inside your story, even the messy parts.
Exactly. Owning it all. She also identifies perfectionism not as striving for excellence, but as a defense mechanism, an exhausting hustle to avoid shame. And she connects shame, anxiety, and disconnection to various numbing behaviors, ways we try to avoid feeling those difficult emotions.
And shame isn't just individual, it infects cultures.
Big time. Blaming, gossip, bullying, public shaming. These are signs, she says, that shame has permeated a workplace, a school, a community. And that statistic about school experiences.
85% recalling a shaming incident that changed how they saw themselves as learners. That's staggering.
It really is. Including creativity scars, being told you're not artistic or musical, and carrying that belief for life. It shows the profound, lasting impact of shame.
Okay, let's end with Kurt Vonnegut. He brings a different flavor: humility, humor, humanity.
Definitely. His advice. If this isn't nice, what is? Just pause in ordinary, peaceful moments and acknowledge them. Simple, but powerful practice of gratitude.
And his sorry and love project for speeches?
Yeah, he felt speakers should always say, thank you, I am truly sorry, and we love you. He found the apology especially radical, a striking novelty, because nobody seemed to do it genuinely. It's about bringing basic human decency and emotion back into public life.
He had that great dark humor comparing Jesus' forgiveness, the Hammurabi's code.
Kill them, Dad, and all their friends and relatives.
Oh.
It's funny, but it makes you think about the fundamental choices we make between vengeance and forgiveness, empathy and retribution.
And his constant reminder of our shared humanity.
We are all so close to each other in time that we should think of ourselves as brothers and sisters. A simple, profound call for connection and kindness.
So this final section, it really challenges you, the listener, doesn't it? How do you define a meaningful life?
It seems the answer, woven through these different voices, involves facing life honestly, including the tough parts, embracing your whole story, flaws and all, as Brown suggests, connecting to something bigger than yourself, finding purpose, as Frankl urged, and maybe practicing a little Vonnegut-style gratitude and kindness along the way.
It suggests wisdom isn't about having all the answers, but maybe about living courageously with the questions and finding growth in vulnerability.
Well put. It's about authoring your own meaningful story.
Okay, wow. We have covered a lot of ground today. An incredible deep dive.
Truly remarkable, from ancient rhetoric to modern psychology, from personal potential to social change.
We explored Aristotle's persuasive blueprints, Conwell's acres of diamonds right under our feet, the moral courage of figures like Sojourner Truth, and the complex leadership of Booker T. Washington, Seneca's stoic resilience, Brené Brown's insights on owning our stories, Vonnegut's call for simple kindness.
And it all seems to circle back, doesn't it? To this core idea that deliberate thought, clear communication, and a strong sense of purpose, these are foundational. Foundational for personal fulfillment, yes, but also for making any kind of positive change in the world.
And this isn't just abstract stuff for you listening. These are practical insights. Think about that gold mine between your ears Earl Nightingale talked about. Where are your unrecognized opportunities, your acres of diamonds?
How can you use these ideas about persuasion, not to manipulate, but to connect better, to make your case more effectively in your own life? How can you build that trust that Aristotle said was so crucial?
And maybe, how can you cultivate the courage we saw in leaders who face tough choices? The courage to act on your values, even when it's hard. Like Roosevelt intervening, or Ginsburg fighting for equality, or Washington navigating an impossible situation. You have these tools, these insights.
It starts with recognizing that potential, embracing your story, flaws and all, like Brené Brown teaches, and then daring to act, like so many of these figures did.
So as we wrap up, let's leave you with this thought. Drawing from Elie Wiesel, he reflected on how history went mad and his haunting belief that it would have taken so little, really, to stop Hitler.
It's a chilling thought. If the greatest horrors could potentially have been averted by seemingly small actions, by people choosing not to be indifferent,
It poses a direct question to you. What little steps, informed by the kind of purpose, potential, and persuasive power we've discussed today, are you taking? How are you choosing to act, to speak, to connect, to ensure that your corner of history bends toward justice and meaning, not towards indifference or despair?
because as all these sources powerfully suggest, the potential for change, big or small, really does reside in your purpose, your voice, and your actions.